Sunday Night Football. It's the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons hosting this one after going to Philly and getting a big dub there last Monday night against the Eagles. What's the matchup that matters here, Carmen? What do you like about this one?
Yeah, well, again, kind of an obvious thing, but Chris Jones
Well,
and Chris Jones versus this Falcons offensive line, who held up beautifully for Kirk Cousins on Monday Night Football against the Eagles. Going into a majority of that game, quarters 1 through 3, actually quarters like 1 through 4.5, Kirk was not mobile, could not move. And that was the biggest concern, after week 1, seeing him barely be able to plant his foot, not getting any torque on the ball. It looked all bad. And this offensive line is being asked to do a whole lot when it comes to Kirk Cousins, and they've so far fared decently well. I don't know if that rings true against somebody like Chris Jones, who is 82.3 PFF grade, which is 4th among interior defensive linemen, 90.1 PFF pass rushing grade, which is 1st among interior defensive linemen, and 13 pressures. It's just, he's a one-man wrecking crew up front there for the Kansas City Chiefs defense. And he's schemed up in different ways. He's moved around the line. Spags knows exactly what to do with him. And also, I think George Karlaftis is coming on even more than he did last year. And he's getting pressure himself too. He's benefiting from teams accounting for Chris Jones. So how do you deal with that, especially when you know that your quarterback is going to sit in the pocket, cannot get himself out of trouble? We didn't even really see any of those play action passes that Kirk Cousins is known so much for, which can mitigate the rush. That hasn't really happened either in Atlanta. So we're going to see. I'm very concerned about that, just given the fact that Chris Jones is so incredibly effective no matter where on the defensive line he is.
Yeah, and it's interesting with him going up against Chris Lidstrom, who's been one of the highest graded interior offensive linemen over the last 2 years, but Lidstrom's really struggling in pass protection this year, 27.7 pass blocking grade. He's given up the most pressures on the team with 8. So you would think that would be a titanic matchup there. And I think that it still can be with how talented both those guys are, but clearly where things are trending, it's going to be a big advantage for Jones. My matchup that matters is Kirk Cousins on non-scripted drives in particular, because when you look, and I'm not saying that he can't improvise, but I'm saying that the Falcons offense right now, in between their scripted drives, which scripted drives, for anybody out there that's listening that doesn't know, when you go into a game, normally your first drive is scripted, if you will. They run through all of the plays that they're probably going to run, depending on how long the drive is. They go through all those plays like through walkthrough, through the week of practice. Like it is a scripted drive. They know the team that they're going up against. Sure, I guess if they're playing things a little bit differently, some of the plays might change or the order of the plays might change. But a lot of those plays that you run for the first drive and for the first drive of the first half and for the first drive of the second half, as well as your 2-minute drills.
2-minute drills.
2-minute drill. Yeah, your 2-minute drill, heading it out into the last 2 minutes of the first half, and then of course the last drive if you have a 2-minute drill at the ending part of the game. If you look at just those 4 drives, so first drive of the first half, last drive of the first half, first drive of the second half, last drive of the second half, Kirk Cousins 81.4 passing grade on those scripted drives against Philadelphia in particular. On the non-scripted drives, 61.4 passing grade. And that's not always to say like, oh, Kirk can't make it happen outside of the scripted plays. Sometimes, you just don't have a great chemistry, where the ball's lined up. You're not calling the right plays for where you're at. Like, there's just not a lot of chemistry there. So there's a lot of things that could go wrong. But I want to see more life from the Falcons offense when things aren't as easy as being scripted. Because that 2-minute drill against the Eagles, it couldn't have looked easier. It could not have looked easier. Zach Robinson absolutely cooked like a Michelin star chef as the offensive coordinator and play caller, and Kirk Cousins executed things to perfection. So how does that look now in the in-between? I think that's a really important part of whether or not the Falcons can keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs. Who's your plus factor in this game?
Yeah, I mean that's gonna the improvisation that they can do. I mean, it's limited by Kirk's Achilles injury still, but it's also limited because this is a new offense for him. So maybe as he gets more comfortable, we're gonna start seeing some more improvisation and just, a little bit more comfort on Kirk's level to make checks at the line, to check into different things. But I do think that a huge part of this has to rest on Bijan Robinson's shoulders, and that, or maybe his legs, is probably the better way to say that, as my plus factor. Leo Chenal for the Kansas City Chiefs, linebacker, has had the is excellent versus running backs, highest grade on Kansas City against running backs. Between him, Chris Jones, Trent McDuffie, can they contain Bijan Robinson and everything that he is able to do? Whether that's run the football, whether that's catch a pass out of the backfield, whether that's catch a pass down the sideline. I think that Kansas City is going to try and force Kirk Cousins to have to throw the ball and throw it often. At least that's what I would do. And then make that offensive line have to hold up, because for as much as they've been serviceable for Kirk Cousins and have he's avoided getting sacked too many times, they also just aren't grade wise looking good in pass protection or pass blocking. So that's something that you can kind of take advantage of if you force this Atlanta Falcons offense to pass the ball. But if Bijan Robinson can get going, I think that, that's going to do wonders for this offense. It's going to unlock a lot of things. And just more specifically, Bijan Robinson it has to be their most productive player, because I just don't trust Kirk Cousins, like you said, for the majority of the game. And that's, a testament to he's not confident yet, whether that's because it's a new scheme or his injury. You have to lean on Bijan's shoulders.
Yeah, I think that Leo Chenal, you brought him up. He is my plus factor in this one, and you talked about how great he is versus running backs and the factor that he could be there, but just overall the versatility that this guy has. 82 snaps overall this season, 70 or 87.5 overall overall PFF grade, excuse me, 85.0 run defense grade, 68.9 passing grade. He's had 37 snaps on the defensive line, 40 as an off-ball linebacker, and then even 5 in the slot. They will use him everywhere. They will line him up as a stand-up linebacker right in front of the A gap to try to, scare the defensive lineman that he's coming, because he's got the strength to be able to do it. He's a huge plus factor on this defense, somebody who is an unsung hero that does not get enough praise. And Steve Spagnuolo is using him in all of his talents, I think, to a maximum level. So you love to see it. I think he could definitely be a plus factor in this game, especially with how they're going to attack this Falcons offensive line.